50 seconds just doesn't do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've lost 140,000 jobs in this province. At the end of the day, we have lost hundreds of businesses. Families are devastated. At the end of the day, this is absolutely unacceptable. It is led primarily by a Quebec First, Canada Second Prime Minister. They have elected 32 separatist MPs in the region of Quebec. Every one of their regional governments has declared war on Alberta. Make no mistake, our supposed brothers and sisters in Canada are not only going out of their way to cause us or undermine our economy, they're going out of their way to actively harm our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, raise your glasses. A toast to Quebec separation, a toast to the Bloc. I say let's help Quebec separate. Let's help them. Cheers. Come on, folks. Whose side are you on? I remember I was born in October of 1962. I remember when we landed on the moon. I remember when Pierre Trudeau was elected. I remember when Peter Lougheed was elected. I remember the debt, the devastation that a socialist liberal government led by Pierre Trudeau imparted on this country. The IMF stepped in and imposed the GST. I remember the National Energy Program, and at the end of the day, this movie we're watching today, we've watched it before. I watched Peter Lougheed try and fight that fight. Peter Lougheed, in a very magnanimous approach, we approached Quebec, and the Alberta Heritage Fund underwrote Hydro-Quebec with extremely favorable loans. What are we getting now? We are getting it thrown back in our face. These people are harming our society, and we have to decide whether we're going to do something about it or not. Folks, I remember in another previous time, the former Soviet Union, the Union of Socialist Republics. I remember 4 people who stood up and they stood for something, and they ultimately brought down that odious level of government. I remember Ronald Reagan saying, all it takes is one generation and your freedom is lost. I remember Dame Thatcher saying, the only way that we're going to run out of money in a socialist economy is because we can't print anymore. At the end of the day, I remember Lech Walesa. I remember John Paul. I remember John Paul saying to Mikhail Gorbachev, you invade Poland, and I will step down the Pope. I will lead the armies against you. Ladies and gentlemen, that ultimately brought the communist nation down. What we need in this province is we need a leader that is not going to be a Neville Chamberlain, but he is ultimately going to be either a Winston Churchill or he is going to be a John Paul. If Jason Kenney was here right now, I would be looking him in the eye and I would be saying, sir, what are you going to be for the people of Alberta? We need you. We are no longer in... Okay.
I think you get your point, Todd. I really appreciate you. I wasn't quite fair to Todd because I'd actually given him 4 minutes yesterday, and he couldn't make it for different reasons, and I'd actually told him 4 minutes, but we're out of time. We're trying to stay on schedule. Dave, actually Donald Lee, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Danny. My fellow Albertans, I liken our relationship in Canada to a marriage relationship. The separate and disparate colonies came together in a hopeful union until death do us part, so to speak. But like many marriages today, I think we need to part before death. We've tried to make this marriage work for 150 years, since Louis Riel. Yet the same problems continue to plague us, and it seems they always will, because our partners are unwilling to reconcile, and perhaps they are geopolitically unable to reconcile. As you know, many marriage breakups are filled with blame and anger and harsh words and even violence. And I see exactly this on the Wexit Facebook page. This is the behavior of a petulant teenager, not the behavior of a self-reliant and independent adult. But it doesn't need to be that way. Let us not go down that path, because that path inexorably leads to violence. Let us avoid violence. And let us avoid the language of violence. This is not a war. It's not a battle. It's not even a struggle. We're simply leaving. Now you've made me forget the next paragraph. And that the right way was so brilliantly shown to us by Mahatma Gandhi. Non-violence, non-cooperation. At one point, reportedly, the Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten, said to Gandhi, "Oh, surely you don't think the British Empire will simply walk away from India?" And reportedly, Gandhi replied, "In the end, I think that's exactly what you will do." And in the end, of course, that's exactly what they did. I think in the end, Canada will simply walk away from Alberta, and Alberta should simply walk away from Canada. But we should walk away not with blame, not with malice, not with anger. We should not blame Quebec or Ontario or British Columbia or any province or any policy or any person for the state of our relationship. It is simply time to change the relationship. Let us go in love. We are wanting for great leaders in the world today, but let me close by paraphrasing a past great leader. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to create that vision of the future that we hold as our ideal, a free and independent Republic of Alberta.
Abraham Lincoln's the only person I would have let you quote over your time. David Bjorkman, 2 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. I got cut down, but that's all right. I came here to give you guys answers. I'm here for the academics. I want you to hear, because I promise you, the American academics are coming on board with me. I'm boots on the ground, Albertan. I love Alberta, and everything I present is for you, all Albertans. There are two invisible elephants that not one person that I've seen the last 2 days talk about. That is the UN, which is the municipalities. It's our major municipalities. This is the UN you don't like. The second one is First Nations. I've already gone to the First Nations here in Alberta, all 48 and 49 being the national chief. I went to them, I gave them a path forward that they wanted, and many First Nations had come forward this more than 2 decades ago. And that was to settle the claims. Unlike Quebec and the rest of Canada, especially the First Confederated Provinces, Alberta has the most First Nations in Canada. We have to settle those claims by giving them an equal portion of the land, okay? That's for their population. The offer was made at 5.13%. That frees up the rest of the Crown land in Alberta that nobody wants to talk about, that only 20% currently is private land in Alberta. Imagine all of you having a piece of that, your children and every Albertan born today. That is the reality of what can be done, and that's how we win the First Nations. 100% free trade and self-government in those lands. Thank you very much, and learn the real UN, the United Nations Security Council. If you do not, academia won't win it either. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I cut him from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. He cut himself to 1.5 minutes, and I sincerely appreciate that, David. Okay, we're running right along. Ken Coates is here from the MacDonald Laurier, and I had the honor and pleasure of meeting Ken a year or two ago at a Modern Miracle function, and he's going to talk to us about forging a stronger relationship with our First Nations neighbors. So, Ken, welcome, and we're running a little bit tight for time, but we've got full time for what you plan to say. And